sad to report that yesterday Liz took a fall, and she's in the hospital with, I don't know, at least one broken bone. I'll leave it at that. And to show you a little bit about the Monmouth Center and how we operate, Stevie Lishan, co-moderator, and her husband Robert, also part of the Monmouth Center, spent most of yesterday with her in the hospital till her family could arrive, and I believe they're still with her now. Besides that, they also managed to work with Liz to rescue her introductory remarks so that her words could be here through me. So that's a testament to the Monmouth Center's commitment both to its mission and to each other. We are kind of like an interfaith church family. I don't know how many of those there are in the world, but we're certainly one of them. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Liz, and those of you who do pray, please pray for a speedy and full recovery for Liz. She's a Christian reverend, so she would certainly appreciate such prayers.
She'll take any prayers.
Thank you. So Liz is not only here in spirit, but as I said, you will now hear her words. Welcome to the 19th Shanti lecture of the Monmouth Center for World Religions and Ethical Thought. We're very grateful for your attendance. First, in the spirit of silence, let us all turn off our techie gizmos or put them in silent mode. And a few announcements. I'm not sure if folks know about Mosaic. It's a youth interfaith group started by the Monmouth Center and the Monmouth County Human Relations Committee about 5 years ago. This is a group of teenagers, and this year we have 47 teenagers from different high schools in the program. They meet at each other's houses of worship, and they learn from each other about their traditions. They also have a meal, and they also do community service project together. It's a very successful and growing program. So if anybody is interested in that, you may speak to SARBMeet. So if you want to send some youth, or you want to have your house of worship, or it doesn't even have to be a house of worship to participate, this opportunity is still there. I would like to invite the members of the Monmouth Center to stand so you can see who we are, including Uma. So you can see there's quite a few of us. We are a working board and a working family. It's not a bunch of people who make decisions and then other people do the work. We do the work. And I can say that in putting together this program, virtually everybody did something. Some people did a lot, some people did a little, but if I needed something to be done, somebody said, I'll take care of that. So that's very gratifying for one who's trying to organize a program with a lot of moving parts. And Uma, who almost didn't stand up, we want to also make a recognition that Uma Swaminathan has been recently elected as the new president for the Association of Indians in America, the New Jersey chapter. But she still does the work. So we are delighted today to learn about civil conversation in this polarized time from Reverend Sarah Pirtle. Just so you know, as we do every year, we allow ample time for questions and dialogue after the presentation, so recognize that we're plenty of time for that. And everyone is invited after the program to go right next door, go out that way to the left for hospitality, so that means food and refreshment, opportunity to talk to each other, continue continue the civil conversation with each other, with a member of the board, and of course with Sarah, as you see fit. We are also want to mention the Shanti program. The Shanti program was started 20 years ago, I believe. Thank you. 19 years ago by the Chada family. There's an endowment fund set up for funding this every year, and we're hanging on. Roshan and Ellen Chada, who are here, to set that up from their family. And today we will also hear from, as a tradition, we have the Chada family members, do appropriate readings. And if you don't know, Shanti means peace in the Sanskrit language, an ancient language of India, correct? Correct, okay. Feel free to. And I'll say, as it was inadequate time for me to collect all the names of the Chada family between last night's phone call with Liz is in the hospital and today. I will invite the members of the Chada family to come up and do the reading that you have selected or have been assigned, however that works out. And please introduce yourself as you do this. And for everybody else, in case you have a hard time hearing, you all have a copy of the readings in the program. It looks like this. And these readings were gracefully provided by Sarah at the request of Roshan. So, please.
Namaskar, Om Shanti. I'm Subhash Chada, youngest daughter-in-law of Srimati Shanti Chada and sister-in-law of Roshan Bhai Sahab and Aaron Bhabhi. Thank you for coming. On behalf of Chada family, I wish to welcome Reverend Sarah Pirtle as our guest speaker of today. And we from the Chada family will do the next 6 readings provided by Reverend Pirtle. The first reading is a group prayer from Chaplaincy Institute of Maine. A talk is a walking prayer with spirit. All the words of wisdom that were never ever said on this planet reverberate still. And we so take a breath together and drink this in. We prepare a sacred place for light. We prepare a place for each person's unique way of knowing to be valued here. Your whole self is welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sunil Chada, son of Subhash and Bhushan Chada, and grandson of Shanti and Sri Ram Chada. The second reading is by Dr. Joanna Macy, Buddhist teacher of the work that reconnects. This is a time on the earth that is filled with suffering and uncertainty. Like living cells in a larger body, it is natural that we feel the trauma of our world. So don't be afraid of the anguish you feel or the anger or fear, because these responses arise from the depth of your caring and the truth of your interconnectedness with all beings.
I am Arun Chada, son of Ellen and Roshan Chada and grandson of Shanti Chada. The third reading is from the chorus Michael Stillwater's song, Breathe. Breathe in the pain, breathe on out the love. Let my heart be a place where this world is changed forever.
Hello. I am Kelly Chada, wife of Arun Chada and granddaughter-in-law of Shanti Chada. I'm going to be reading the fourth reading, which is by grandmother Flor de Mayo of the 13 grandmothers. Only by living in the moment do we save ourselves, because when we are living in the moment, we feel more alive. We feel more love and more community. If we pray 100% in the moment, we can move the consciousness of humanity. We must pray to acknowledge each other as brother and sister, as nations of people that breathe the same air, as nations of people who are being fed by the spirit of the ancestors of the sacred waters.
I am Yash Chada, son of Sunil Chada and great-grandson of Shanti Chada. The fifth reading is from Reverend Ann Weiser, Interfaith Minister. We are all so much greater than our small selves. Every day we wake up in the morning and our small selves rush in. We dress in our clothes and yesterday's news. We lay out our fears in plain sight where we can keep track of them. But that causes us to live in the places we are trying to give up, to get away from. I don't want to live in those places that divide me between who I am and what I wish I could be. That is a place between trust and distrust. That divide, that dark crack is fertile. It is a place of new growth, and I let curiosity replace fear.
I am Ellen Chada, the eldest daughter-in-law of Shanti Chada. I want to thank you all for coming today to honor Shanti and Sri Ram Chada. I want to also make a little correction. The endowment fund was established by my husband, his brother, Bhushan, who's here, his wife, Subhash, who's here, and myself, so the four of us. The sixth reading is from the wisdom of Pumla Gobido Maida Kazela. This is a woman who in South Africa served on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Her wisdom has been put into new words by our speaker, Sarah. When our stories are heard and received, and when we let ourselves notice that they are heard and received, we, the tellers of the stories, change, and the people who hear them are changed. Thereafter, when we think of the events, we are no longer inside them, isolated and alone. Thereafter, the caring of the listener is now woven inside the story. Thank you.
Thank you for the child. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
You may read Reverend Sarah Pirtle's impressive and relevant bio on the attractive program handout, which you should have been handed out to. Could somebody hold one up to make sure everybody knows what that looks like? In the interest of time, and according to Sarah's preference for humility, I will only mention a few highlights from her bio. She's been a social justice advocate, peace camp director, author, grad school teacher, recording artist, interfaith minister, and lifelong Unitarian Universalist. Her extensive expertise in group dynamics has prepared her well for her ongoing efforts to foster civil conversation, which some of us call civil discourse, some of us call dialogue. She's done this across many divides, generational, interfaith, and political, and I'm sure many more. Lastly, a little about her music. Sarah was awarded the Magic Penny Award for Lifetime Achievement for bringing meaningful songs to family. At lunch, we were talking a little bit about Mr. Rogers. People have said I'm like Mr. Rogers because I'm boring. But she gives a message through music that's very akin to Mr. Rogers. That's a compliment, of course. And you heard samples of her recorded music before the program started. And if all goes according to plan, which it looks like it will, we'll get to hear her sing at least one song today. And for the late Pete Seeger, American folk singer icon, he said about Sarah, if you want to hear some songs, some of the best songs out there today for children, listen to Sarah Pirtle. So let us give a nice warm welcome to Sarah Pirtle.
I guess we've created a little bit of a living room here. And I feel so honored to meet you all, to meet the Chada family and to hear each of you bring those thoughts to life. It's really a treat. This whole talk, in some ways, I think of like a prayer. And so I was sitting there, I thought, I want to recite the Gayatri Mantra. And to honor the Hindu religion, to honor ancient Sanskrit, and to just bring us together. So as I'm doing this, whatever helps you come in touch with that feeling of your essence. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Deva Disya. Okay, I just got nervous. I can do it better if I sing it. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Yo Yona Prachodayat. I join those who are already joining. Om Bhurbhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Yo Yona Prachodayat. With all words, with all thoughts, we bring our hearts together. And I think that's the essence of dialogue. I want to thank three more people. Joe, where are you, Joe? It has been such a treat to be working together this month. I grew up in Summit, New Jersey, and my dear best friend from high school, Kit Stinson, I'm just so pleased that you're here. In our Unitarian Church in Summit, the third person I want to mention is Dr. Jacob Trapp. He taught us this way of being in our hearts. Some of his words were, half of language is to listen. So the work we are doing today contains the dialogue moment, but is much wider. Spiritually, the dialogue is about restoring and living inside a shared river of life. Now, imagining a map, I'm going to talk about Kentucky and Western Massachusetts. So, our area of Leverett is just above Amherst, Massachusetts, if that's a familiar area. It's called the Five College area. And then going to eastern Kentucky, you probably know the name Harlan County. So in 1973, that was a place where there was a 13-month coal miners' strike. So Letcher County is the county just above that. So the dialogue that I'm talking about today is between Leverett, Massachusetts, and Letcher County. What happened is that our groups are the opposite in terms of the profile of how people voted. In Letcher County, 85% of the people voted for Trump. In Leverett, 85% voted the other way. So, isn't this exciting that we came together to dialogue? In fact, people from Kentucky, a year ago, this October, came to Leverett. And then 6 months later in April, we went to Kentucky. So each time we were there for 4 days. One of the key things is that it's not just the structured dialogue moments, but it was the time of staying in each other's homes, the meals together. Now, when we think about what it would mean to to meet intimately with someone who, in terms of the color coding of red and blue, is described as your other. But really, there's this readiness for listening that says we do not want to reduce people to a limited model. So very much abroad today is the sense of belittling, shouting, and dialogue is spiritually and practically different. How did it begin? So in 2016, 60 people in Leverett came together in shock after the election. And they said, we don't want to be severely polarized as a country. How can we talk to people who are different from us? They started a bridging committee. They reached out to people who were in Trump-leaning towns right nearby. And what's really interesting is the people they reached out to said no. And I wonder even if they felt that it was a setup. They might have said, well, you say that you want to listen to each other, but really do you want to change us? And so they said no. And the bridging committee was about to give up. And then a man named Jay Frost, who describes himself as a staunch environmentalist and who's a journalist, he found on the internet an article called Building Democracy in Trump Country. I want to read you a bit of it. So we're hearing Ben think, and what I thought I'd do, because I'm going to be introducing you to a lot of different people, I'll be holding up this hat when I talk about Ben. I'll have different reference points so you can keep track of who's who. Ben, he said, so he is right now living in Letcher County. The bigotry and violence of the Trump campaign wasn't the product of our people in Kentucky. These are our ideas. My neighbors may not be up on the latest social justice lingo, but they are not hateful. Yes, my northern accent sticks out, but as long as I'm open about who I am, and as long as I'm interested in who other people are, we open up, people take me in, we work together. And so, can you get this feeling for Ben as you hear his words? So this kind of a miracle. We have this article is found. Jay sends an invitation and says, would you like to come and meet with us face to face? Now, when Ben brought that to people of Letcher County, it wasn't an easy thing. In fact, I want to tell you exactly what some people said. So there were suspicions. Was this another exploitative, let's go look at the hillbillies? Isn't that interesting? And so they took the risk, and I want to convey to you what a risk that was. Somebody from that many miles away says, come. And later they said, how did you have the courage to welcome us into your homes? But that's what occurred. Now in this talk, which is a 45-minute talk, I want you to be able to get the parameters of the sequence of what happened. But just as much, I want you to feel what it was like to be in that dialogue. I promised Joe that I'm going to take you into some of the hard moments. And I loved on your website, this is a quote from your website. We have discovered the importance of doing work that is both outer and inner. And that's really what happens with dialogue. That you can say, we were here this many days, but what's happening inside you? That's what's so exciting. Now, I know many of you are involved in dialogue and you have Civil Discourse Committee. I want you to think of us in Massachusetts who are now family with you. As sitting at lunch with everybody, it's so much the case. So if there's any way that we can assist you, we will. And I believe that you will develop your own flavor of dialogue that will include the world religions. Now, I thought it would be helpful to try to illuminate like 8 key points. So let me start now with 3. The first point is you're trying to discover people who are also committed to common dreams. And I think of it as a tuning fork. So in Western Mass, to match two towns in Western Mass who voted differently, there was not that resonance. So I believe the first clue is you're looking for the resonance of the tuning fork. When Jay was saying, will you come? Who was going to stay with Jay, the environmentalist? A 74-year-old strip miner who still believes in strip mining. And Jay was saying, I want to find out where we can work together. So you hear the sincerity. So I think that that's the crucial thing, is you're looking for people who sincerely want to reach for each other's essence. You'll be hearing about this man who's a strip miner, and his sister, Nell, voted the other way. In their family, 18 children. And here's what happened to Nell when she heard our invitation. She said, a lightning bolt went off in my head. And I said to myself, this is something you need. So picture that for 13 hours in a van, all together. Ben is driving, and they're coming across, and they've been exchanging pictures of family and gardens with their hosts. And when they arrive, Gwen, who you'll hear a lot about, Gwen is one of the Kentuckians, and she says to the group who are there in the October night by Congregational Church and flashlights, first thing she says is, let's join hands and let's sing Bright Morning Stars. And for many people, that moment said, we've already done it. We're already connected. We can feel this common spirit. Second key point is to have the dialogue training, to make the switch from debate to dialogue. And I'll give you an example later of two people from each area who did not have the training, and they begin to butt heads. So it's crucial, like I know that you're doing this, and over there are one of the key dialogue sheets that you use. When I got to talk to Sararit, when we were talking at lunch, there was this sense as we were speaking about the universe story and also the meaning of Namaste. I believe it's like finding the senses, like we know the sense of smell and touch and taste, but there are unnamed senses. There's a sense of trust. There's a sense of reaching for sincerity. And I think it's those senses that we have to bring when we're doing dialogue. I think this is crucial. I've been anticipating this exciting moment of meeting you, seeing your actual faces for a month. And one morning I woke up and I was like, okay, this is what I want to say to them. That when you're talking with someone, you ask yourself, what am I exchanging with this person? So you're conscious of what your intent is. It's not one-upmanship. It's not saying, I have this great way of thinking, and I want to give you a piece of my mind. It's things like, I want to know what you think and what your experiences have been. I have been changed by these last 18 months. When I tried to put my finger on it, I believe that I interact with people differently on a daily basis. And I want to give you that excitement of feeling into it. What is that? How do I refine that spot? I hold back more. I catch myself in a judgment. I try to ask a question that's not like a setup question, but like a true open-ended question. Another part of this, I had the joy last weekend of being at a workshop with Ruby Sales, she calls herself a public theologian, and she was part of SNCC, she's part of the civil rights movement, And so I'm still that we're all part of. A third was so profound as I began to think about when I was growing up, the Little Abner cartoons. Does anyone remember? Or the Broadway play about Little Abner? In that play, there was a song that said, "We sit around swapping lives." And so there's this stereotype of that mountain people have no shoes, no teeth, they have dirt floors. And the way one person from Kentucky said, "We mountain people are the last group where it is socially acceptable to make fun of us and still think of yourself as progressive." So this key point of reading more and getting ready and thinking, what's it like in Letcher County where there were 1,400 miners and then that dropped to 28 in the last 4 years and now there are 13, but that was the main economic base? What does that feel like? So now we are linked and I ache with them for mountaintop removal or black lung. And when I got to meet Gwen, who I'm going to represent with this apron that she gave me. So the elementary school that Gwen went to is now banned. And at that elementary school, it's now a community center with community meals. So Gwen said to us, "I have coal dust in my veins. My brother died, I have 5 families who died in the mines, and right by this place, she had me walk with her over bricks, where the bricks were carved with the names of miners who had died. And there was a shiny monument all next to what had been her elementary school. So this profound sense, and you'll feel in Gwen's words, you'll get to meet her. She said, "My greatest fear coming to Leverett is that you would never forgive us for voting for Trump." Isn't that something? And then I was lucky in Kentucky to stay with Gwen. And when we stayed up, we got up really early the last morning. And she said, "When you start in the direction of people helping each other, it feels like all heaven and earth arise to help." And that is what we found, yes. And so I wanted to begin with those 3 key points. Now I'm going to be a little more descriptive. So there we are, our first morning. And I want very much for you to be able to meet Dr. Paula Green. This could not have happened without Dr. Green. She works internationally for 40 years in 30 different countries. She went to Bosnia and met with women there. She meets with Palestinian and Israelis who are combatants for peace. And she goes and works and helps them dialogue. How lucky to have her be our trainer in dialogue, and she was the one who led the structured dialogue. Paula was given an award from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a compassion award as an unsung hero of compassion. Paula said to us, "When you're doing dialogue, you do not begin with the hardest thing. When I went to Bosnia, I did not begin with who started this war. So, when you meet people with Letcher County, do not begin with who did you vote for." It might seem obvious, but we needed to have that. We needed to have that reminder. What she did is when she trained us, she then said, "I'm going to bring together some of my Muslim friends so we can practice dialogue." And then what was really exciting is she decided that the way for all of us to meet that first morning was to have us make a paper quilt. Now, yes, we went over ground rules and we could make up our agreements, and yes, we reviewed what dialogue is, but then we're all in this room together with markers and we're all mixed up and we're just having this joy of everybody on the square drawing representations of their family. So, we come together and she says to us, this is really important, What's your family story and what impact has it had on you? So we heard heartbreak. One of the young men who was 18, because 3 teenagers came and met man, 20 members of his family died in the mines. It was like that old song, I owe my soul to the company store. Lumber barons destroyed the wood, coal barons took the coal, there was contamination. And we realized that many of them had had family in Kentucky for 7, 8, 9, 10 generations. But in Massachusetts, it might be 1 or 2 generations. I'm going to have things from my talk be on the table. You can look at these and others. I'm holding this up because one of our Massachusetts members for the Institute for Holocaust, Genocide, and Memory Studies, she has a traveling exhibit about her family and dying in the Holocaust. And when she talked, the people from Kentucky began to cry. So half of us in Leverett happen to be Jewish. And as people heard this story, one woman said, I was taught to dislike immigrants. You're telling me your immigration story of your families. I will never think the same about immigrants again. So we cried together. And one of the things that was amazing is we had hoped to have a certain level of closeness by the last day of the weekend. We had it the first morning. And I believe that that's what we were talking about. That's like you reaching for the essence of the other person. And as you sincerely find it, everything shifts. That's what happened to us. Now, I was asked to write a theme song, and I'm gonna sing it now, and also invite you to learn the chorus if you like, if you enjoy. Thank you, Joe, for your guitar. The other Joe, where are you? Thank you. So, I was trying to imagine what's the essence. We're taking a chance. We're taking a chance to join and sit down together. And I can see better by the light in your eyes, and that light will lead us back home. Hands across the hills, hands across the hills, joining hearts and joining wills, hands across the hills. Before we met you, we pictured your faces, we studied your names and planned where you'd stay. Now I can see all the strengths that you carry as you work and you build and you pray. As you work and you build and you pray. We're taking a chance. Let me line that out. We're taking a chance. We're taking a chance to join and sit down together. And don't feel pressured to sing. If you'd like to, your voice is welcome. We're taking a chance to join and sit down together. To join and sit down together. I can see better by the light in your eyes. I can see better by the light in your eyes. That light will lead us back home. Hands across the hills. Hands across the hills. Hands across the hills. Joining hearts and joining wills. Hands met together, as we met together, one of the key points was to not just talk together, but to do things together. We had 4 potlucks that first gathering, and on their way back in the van, they made fun of the fact that at the potlucks, people would have these signs. I don't know if this is true at your potlucks, like vegan, or soy-free, no white sugar. And they just thought that was 63. Poverty in Kentucky was read by John Kennedy. John Kennedy promised to come out to Letcher County. He said, first I have to go to Dallas. Isn't that incredible? So Bobby Kennedy kept the promise, and they still have stories of being a girl meeting Bobby Kennedy. And so what happened was John Kennedy took $45 million from his executive funds for winter relief. Life magazine had a big story. Charles Carroll had a story about Christmas in April. But this is a really important thing for me to try to explain. Yes, the Kentucky Highlands became a major battlefield in the war on poverty. They had to get accustomed to the spotlight. The spotlight was not always respectful. So a shopkeeper who said, I don't have money for Christmas because when people come here to buy food, they have to buy on credit, and I want them to have the food. And I don't know how it's going to work out, but I just have to give them this food. And so after that, he got all this outpouring of money. He hadn't intended it. He was just reporting the truth. One morning, 5 van loads of used clothing came to that merchant. This is in the 60s. But there would be clothing like a tuxedo. So there was that disrespectful. And in Letcher County, someone who sold shoes, who had all these shoes that were like didn't sell, he shipped them to Letcher County. So there were enough shoes for every child to have 2 pairs, 12,000 pairs of shoes. So us coming to Letcher County, there was this history. And so it was really crucial that we were aware of this. I want to tell you about, I had that brother and sister in mind, the fire chief who was a miner, and now the light bulb went off, like I really have to be part of this. So in that war on poverty, I remember being told that people were giving cameras to people in impoverished areas. So Herbie Smith, at 18 or 19, received one of these cameras. He was part of this group. And Herbie has gone on to help found Apple Shop. Now, the prefix apple is not for apples, it's Appalachia. So Apple Shop is this huge place. And it's the first I'm going to give you of our 4 stops. So we're standing here, and people are telling us that here's 100 films now that are based on Appalachian culture, herbalists, musicians, and then here's our radio station that you can listen to, Mountain Radio. We were so inspired. We found out that Apple Shop there in Letcher County feeds $1.5 million into the local economy each year. So we didn't want to have stereotypes, but we didn't expect the vigor and vitality that we found. This is really crucial. Second place to tell you about. The second place is Hemp Hill. When we went to the community meeting on a Friday night, we get there, and here's Gwen's brick oven, and she's employing young people in their 20s who were put in prison for being part of drugs. And they're now out of prison and working with Gwen. In our area, we have the Black Sheep Deli, who gave t-shirts and they're calling themselves the black sheep for mixed reasons, and also I hear kind of a racist use of black. But I want to say that that's part of the nuance that we have to keep in mind. So at Hemp Hill, walk in, and this table has these little plastic cups. Those were borrowed from a church. Little plastic communion cups. And now there's candles. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. It's Friday nights. They've put on for us a Shabbat service. Can you believe it? It was just people who felt like they had no Jewish friends in the Kentucky community. They now had pieces of paper. They were reading along with the Shabbat service. Ben was leading the Shabbat service. He himself is Jewish. It was just amazing as an action of love for us as we went to Hemp Hill. Third spot, the Shriners. The Shriners hosted us for breakfast. We guessed that they might be the most conservative group who were hosting us, and it was such a thoughtful encounter. They asked us to show slides and talk. Then we had index cards where you could write an anonymous question we fielded. I'm going to read you one of the questions. What do people like you with all your education and development owe people like us? Do you have a responsibility toward us? So I was on my feet and I said yes. And then Paula Green was able to put this into words. I want to read you what she said. I want to speak of our commitment to economic justice and a living wage for all. We are aware of the exploitation, the extraction of resources, and the pollution that have plagued the communities in your region. We are not here to push solutions of any kind on you. We are here to get to know you. Yeah, it was a really, really profound moment. Now, a Kentucky man who's part of this Hands Across the Hills, Tyler, who's a lawyer and he owns a restaurant, his words were very poignant. He said, we were always told what to think and feel, and someone else can solve our problems. So, what was profound is to learn about the Culture Hub. And I know that you can't read this, of course, but what I want to represent is 22 local organizations are vitally connected through what they're calling the Culture Hub. And Nell is the board president, and she's part of Apple Shabbat, and Nell, I'm sorry if I've got this inaccurate. I know you're the board president of Apple Shabbat, but she's also thickly involved with this. And we got to attend a celebration of the Culture Hub. With Lee Sexton, Evangel Legend was there. There was a play, there was square dance. It was astonishing. It was so joyful. We had on our Hands Across the Hills t-shirts. And one of the key points is to have some symbols of connection. So this has across these clouds are shaking hands with each other. For me, what this t-shirt says is that we have been inside something and been changed by it. We have been changed by it. The theme and the motto of the Culture Hub is we own what we make. So it's a verbal antidote to more than a century of extraction and exploitation. We own what we make. As we sat in Tyler's restaurant, each person was supposed to say a closing word, and one of the women, Sharon, said, impressed. I'm impressed by the vitality. And I'm also impressed by the leadership of women. Gwen said that one of the hard things that can happen in Letcher County, she said, it's like whack-a-mole. A woman raises her head in leadership, and she's whacked it down, but we keep going. So I want to give you 3 difficult moments in the dialogue. Now, I've just described large social interactions, but we also had this dialogue, and Paula has a way, she said, when I have a dialogue, I want it to be safe and rich and private and tight. No one was allowed to take notes during dialogue. We all could sit anywhere. We were all together because it was no longer an us and them. You know, it was one group of hands across the hills. So let me give you some painful moments. And it's hard to say them, but I think it's important. So the key point that goes with this is create an open space where you can lean towards each other. The second weekend, Gwen suddenly said something she thought would feel very complimentary to the Jewish members of the group. She said, "Aren't you excited that Trump is going to make Jerusalem the new capital of Israel?" And what she was referring to is moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So I told you that Paula has done all this extensive work in the Middle East, 25 years in the Middle East. So she had to keep her neutral role. And it was the biggest emotional geyser that had happened at any time. It felt to me like the room was shaking. And I can't recall all that was said, but immediately after, I jumped in the truck with Gwen, and I was like, just a hard moment or a moment you dread could happen during a dialogue. Do ask me, but that would be one of them. What would you do? Interestingly enough, one of the folks from Massachusetts commented, and it was put in the newspaper, people from Kentucky ask more gentle questions. My 8th key point, and I think I want to go back to the 7th one. It's like when you notice that there's a difference, like a person from Massachusetts said, "I don't understand why you're not more upset about what happened under mining." Now, the trick is you notice this thing you can't figure out, and then do you leave it at that? Do you let that distance you more, or do you lean in? And I think that's a crucial point. The 8th one is to lift up questions. Paula, the last afternoon, put us in mixed groups of 3. So mixed group would be make sure you've got someone from Massachusetts, someone from Kentucky. What are the unanswered questions? We wrote them down, we talked with each other, then we put them on the board with masking tape, and we put them in categories. I omitted just share a couple of them with you. Both folks from Massachusetts and Kentucky said, "How did your image of us change after spending time with us?" Tell me. The folks from Kentucky said, wait till you hear this, "Is there a way to overcome the stigma of feeling like white trash?"
Repeat.
I will. Thank you, Roshan. Is there a way to overcome the stigma of feeling like white trash? So what happens that now we are dialogue family is that I feel it's part of my responsibility to hold that question, to be part of that change. Another question was, how's the disparity of our economic differences impacted our work together? How will we know if all the work we are doing is going to be worth it? Here's a question that I wrote, and you can hear my angst about what I learned by how I talk to Gwen. How do we describe to other people that what we have experienced about bonding, caring, learning from each other is more crucial fundamentally than convincing, changing, critiquing someone else, or telling them that they have fallen for false news? So that's my attempt to learn and to speak what I have learned. We're in the last 5 minutes of my talk. And one of the things that happened was that the Kentuckians said, "We noticed that you didn't have a lot of questions for us. Why was that?" And Nell, who I will graphically represent as the person who's active in Culture Hub, Nell said, in Appalachian culture, it's an awful thing to ask somebody how much money they make, who they voted for. The one time my daddy spanked me was when I asked him who he voted for. So that was why they were asking us a lot of questions. In fact, in her home of 18 children, their father made sure that everyone was registered to vote, but nobody talked about who. Gwen said, voting is a sacred thing. It's your obligation to the people in your life, and because your ancestors had died, crossing the water to give you that right, but you were to keep it secret. Someone once said to me, "Isn't dialogue slow?" And I said, "No, I think it's both slow and fast." It's fast because in that instant where you're talking to someone, you feel yourself trusting them. And so fast, a connection has been made. We had a documentary filmmaker come to film our work. He visited both places. He's going to be showing the film this month in Poland and France and Germany because he felt that what we're doing is bringing hope. And he asked us, "Why did you want to join Hands Across the Hills?" And most people said, "For hope." I believe that hope is necessary to the human soul. I believe hope is like the crocus in the spring pushing through the ice. Paula says we are part of a very large chain of hearts that extends beyond Kentucky, beyond Massachusetts, around the world, where people everywhere of goodwill are fundamentally connected. And so, I ask you, would you make the shape of a circle with me? And Mother Teresa said, the work of human beings is to draw our circles larger. I invite you to think about a time that you were in a golden circle. It's the best way I can describe it. You're with a group of people, you could feel that trust was building. It might have been any time in your life. Could have been in your neighborhood. Or any time in your life. What does it feel like to be in a golden circle? How can you recreate that? How can you be a generator for that trust? Trevor Baptiste is part of a group that's extending what we're doing. We now have a dialogue group that's linking Western Mass and South Carolina specifically about race. And Trevor Baptiste in our first meeting said, it was so great. He said, I think when people are joining each other and creating connections, can even be among 2 or 3 people, that the human fabric has changed in that moment. In that moment, we're tighter. We can't be torn apart. So, as we, in closing, are holding that sense of the circle, our hands are facing our hearts, and we're feeling that our hearts, I want to invite that sense that our hearts connect to the heart of the world. that as our hearts open, it matters. It matters. The work we do, connecting our hearts, is fundamental work of the universe that happens right here in the present moment. Thank you so sincerely for your listening hearts in this talk. What Joe and I thought, instead of going right into question and answer, it feels more respectful of you to bring you into pairs or threes. I want you to be in dialogue. And I'd like you to challenge yourself. I'm going to tell you what the questions are. I'll do the timing. And in the groups, there'll be 3 groups of 4 minutes. So if you're pairs, each person would have 4. And then you could talk together. It could be that you would walk to another part of the room when we form our pairs and be with someone you've never met before. Or it could be that right now there is someone you know very well that you just really, really want to talk to. So I want to trust you. I don't want to have one or other be the right way to do it. And in your 4 minutes, here are possible ways. So the trick is to trust yourself with what you need to talk about.
Excuse me, that's a post-it board, so if you want to...
We can lift it.
That's a post-it.
Yes. This could...
If you rip it out and don't put plastic, you can stick it on...
It's a sticky note.
Yes.
A sticky note.
Okay, let me check. We were guessing that it's easier to read the sticky note here. If there's another place to put it, we could put it. But I realized for people sitting further back, would it work for me to say it loudly? Would it help to... Where should it go after it's heard? Would it be good to know?
I'll help.
Pardon?
I'll help. I also print it out. I'll be there.
Okay.
It's gone.
Oh, great. Let me read these. So you don't have to do one of these. These are choices. You might just want to say, here's what's come up for me in listening to this talk about hands across the face. Or try these. Describe the time of a golden circle that is a reference point for you. So my dear friend Kit, when I was preparing for this talk, said, what's that for you? And I thought of the first moment, the first morning of Hands Across the Hills. So I wanted to recreate with you the feeling that we had. What's a reference point that throughout your life you can use? I don't know if golden circle, if those words work for you, but it's one way to think of it. Now, second, very different question. Who would you like to dialogue with? Some people in Massachusetts joined Hands Across the Hills so they could get more skillful at dialoguing with relatives. So it might not necessarily... So there's all kinds of answers to this. Who would you like to dialogue with? And then, if that's a helpful question, what could be a next step? What could be a next step? So, if, for example, the two of you were in a pair, one of you might choose that question and get the help of the other person listening. Here's a new question. Joe, I just made this up after our luncheon. In your life now, as you talk with someone, if you're trying to place yourself in that sense of mutual respect, seeking their essence, can you come up with an image or words that help you refine that? Like when we talked at lunch, it was like I could feel us talking about, as you're talking to me, I'm saying, this is my experience of a part of the universe. We're two parts of the universe having this moment of talking. So I will remember your face and have that be my touchstone. So think for a moment, if you are a person who finds it helpful to speak externally, to know more what you're thinking, you know, this could be a moment. I don't know what's causing that little crackling, but. And by the way, thank you, Melissa, for all the sound and all your help. Did these feel clear? Are you starting to get a sense of what you most need to talk about? So, if you're stuck, just ask yourself, well, what thoughts are on top for me as I was hearing about Hands Across the Hills? Okay, so now I'd like you to think about what would serve you best. You can be in a group of 2 or a group of 3, but you're going to be in a dialogue group for about 12 minutes. And see if you'd like to just dare and walk to another part of the room. So I'm going to give you a couple of moments to get settled and exchange names, and then I'll be ringing the bells. The moment has come. Please find who you're going to talk to. 2 or 3 people.
She wants us to go 2 to 3, and maybe one of the questions, you have a question. You do, you went to lunch. Do you want to talk with us? I'm really part of this also. I've never been a chance to talk to Iris. Do you want to go get somebody else? Find somebody. Hey, I was going to steal this man. We can be in the forum. Or should we just you and I? I feel like I've been wanting to dialogue.
There you go. Just, you can go this way. Hi there, buddy.
Hello. Oops, watch out. Let me just hold your hand for a minute.
So take a moment to make sure you can see each other. I would recommend if you're side by side, one of you move your chair so you're in front of the other. Otherwise you might get a stiff neck. If you're in a group of 4, you'll still have time.
So she asked us if we
We're going to have 12 minutes. So, how about taking a chance. So I'll use that as our callback signal. So I'd like you now to pick numbers so you know what order you're going to speak in. Who's going to speak first? Who's going to speak second? Don't start talking, but pick numbers. Who's number 1? Who's number 2? If you are number 1, raise your hand. If you're number 2, raise your hand. Okay, number 3 or 4. Here we go. Great. So let me repeat what's about to happen. I'll be timing for 4 minutes. The first person talks, and the other people are purely listening. So it's you're in that bubble. So let me repeat it again because I heard someone say that it was confusing. Let's again raise your hand if you're first person. You take the whole 4 minutes. You use your time however it's helpful to you. There's not a right way to do this. But nobody else during this time may start to share their thoughts. Oh, that reminds me. No, not in dialogue. It's their sacrosanct moment. And then wait for me to switch it, okay? So I'll say to you 30 seconds, and then we'll just do very concrete timing. So, are there any questions?
It's about listening and learning to be uncomfortable with silence. Those are these two lessons.
Joe, would you like this?
So, the first person, so I see half the room feeling ready and half the room feeling confused. So, let me try to tease out where the points of confusion might be. Is it clear about the sequence?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is it clear that you could use these but you don't have to?
Yes.
Okay.
Is silence allowed in the board business?
I'm gonna press you to not. I think it would be better to not use it. And if I'm wrong and the group feels it's because I think it's like bringing your voice out. Would the first person please begin?
Part of a couple of people and other times.
question and answer section that's going to be brief. But let's have the last verse of this song that helps to bring us back. We're taking a chance, join, sit down together. I can feel better by the light in your eyes. That light will lead us back home. Here's the last verse. Back in Letcher County, when you look at your mountains, we're in the same circle, we're on the same team. We look at the same moon, we look at the same sky. We look in our hearts and find the same dreams. We look in our hearts, find the same dreams. We're taking a chance. We're taking a chance to join and sit down together. To join and sit down together. I can see better by the light in your eyes, and that light will lead us back home. And that light will lead us back home. I'm so glad you had a time for that light in each other's eyes, and thank you for being part of this dialogue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I on? Good. So now it is your turn. I'll suggest that Sarah has provided some very useful guidance already on civil discourse, dialogue, or civil conversation, so I can be brief about sharing guidelines. So one guideline I think is often an important one is please be brief. Raise only one question or issue at a time. We'll get back to you after everybody gets a chance. And this is an opportunity to express yourself with interest, caring, and humility. So again, interest, caring, and humility. So take a moment to think about how to frame a question, especially if it's uncomfortable. Lastly, as Sarah said, try to speak from the I perspective rather than the you said perspective. The latter, the approach of using I tends to lead to a less defensive response. And if you want to learn more at the literature table in the community room, you'll find a one-page handout on dialogue, what it is, what it isn't, and a number of kind of very common sense rules. And there will also be other handouts from the Mama Center and Sarah. So please raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, and then wait for the microphone to reach you so that everybody can hear what you have to say.
Assalamu alaikum. I really like the presentation and what you have presented to us. I have a lot of good things to say, maybe I can share it, but right now I do have one point to raise. The dialogue that you had with this group from Kentucky, and they felt hard feelings for the Jewish people in that group who have lost their family members in the Holocaust, which is very legitimate cause and good for empathy and understanding and bonding. But I do believe something very important was missing from that picture, and that is how the Native American were exposed to much more atrocious than this, and they are not recognized around the world as it has been for the Holocaust. And today, even as we live today, many of them are being killed and raped and all kinds of atrocity happening. Their lands are being taken, and we're all looking at it, shrugging our shoulders and saying, well, there's reservations. These people are nothing. They're not considered as part of the society, even though they are the natives who lived in this land. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
What you're saying is so crucial that I want to pause at it. So, where I live is the place of the Bakamtuk people. Who are the First Nations people of right here? Is it the Raritan people? Like, whose land was this?
The Native American Lenape.
Lenape.
It's a tribe, tribe.
So the Lenape was a huge group of this incredibly powerful culture that, like Pakamtuk, we were a really small group in our area. So one of the things that happens in Canada is that in the universities, every day that they start a class, the first thing they do is name the First Nations group of that area. And so I'm in a group called The Work That Reconnects, and that's what we do. We begin by saying we're here on the land of Lenape. So what you're saying is so crucial. In our area, I'm involved in helping children get the truth about what you're saying, so that in this area of Western Mass that I was describing, there used to be for 10,000 years, at least 1,000 people would come together to share salmon. It's like images that we've lost, but it's images of cooperation, partnership, peace building. I think what I want to do is make a vow that every time I give this speech, I'll start with honoring the First Nations people of the area. Thank you for your comment.
Anybody else?
Conservative, hateful agenda, how do they reconcile the underlying anger, hatred, and bold racism that is being spewed everywhere? How do they reconcile this as good, in some cases, God-fearing Christians, or just otherwise, good people? How do they reconcile that?
So it feels like let's really lift up your question and enjoy it and feel it. Because one of the things I'm hearing in it is you're saying, what would be the moment when a person who was wrapped up in that would get feedback? I want to give you an example. So in Kentucky, when we had that celebration of the Culture Hub, a young man did that same thing you're saying with his grandfather. And I want to tell you how it went. So it's great you're asking this. So he was part of a play, and when we had the talk back, he said, I had this talk with my grandfather. Grandfather, I think that you're being brainwashed. I'm seeing the mail that's coming to you. I'm holding up a piece of this mail. You're listening to Fox News all day long. And he had the courage to name that. So that's the kind of thing, I guess, you're putting out a wish that more of this would happen, where people get feedback. And in that moment, it was a breakthrough moment that it was spoken. But his grandfather's reaction was troubling. He directed his grandson to a special liquor cabinet and invited him to have a drink. So it's kind of like, let's go back in the denial. But you're saying, what would it be like for someone to experience and go, I'm being filled with hate, or I'm being filled with rage. This was not my intention. I think it's like the $64,000 question of these times. How do any of us feel our times when we're off balance? And that kind of like firmly inside that entrenched place. I'm going to jump from your question to, I looked over and said, I didn't show you this, but there's ways that this relates. When I had that breakfast experience with the Shriners, what I'm holding is a piece of art that's as long as like a dining table. And this was taken to the United Nations. So let me make sure that I'm giving all the facts on. I'm going to go back to the page where I have this ready.
What does it say on top?
Okay, what it says is the agony of Gaia. So when we went to a cafe and I saw this gorgeous art that was on the level, who was saying it was like the Pennsylvania realist. It was just this
Andrew
gorgeous
Wyatt?
art.
I thought
And
Andrew Wyatt.
so this artist's name is Jeff Chapman Crane. And he lives by the Black Mountain that's been torn down by mountaintop removal. And he and his wife Charmin, his partner, they give environmental tours. So here's where it jumps back to what you're saying. She said that her experience of Letcher County is that it's the highest depression rate in Kentucky. She says it's from hiding secrets. And she says it's like people are sliced and diced and divided. So Jeff wanted to express the agony of the earth. And this is so tiny, I'll have it over in the other room, but it's a picture of the goddess Gaia and the trucks that are in there as part of mountaintop removal. It's absolutely chilling and brilliant. So he brings this around. And as I said, he brought it to the United Nations. And I think his hope is that hope, like, might this wake someone up? So I bet we're all carrying your question. And how do we wake ourselves up to the times with what we miss, or the times we get spun into building a wall? Thank you.
You just think. But I'm one of the co-directors or co-leaders of the Monmouth Center, and it's the most meaningful work one can ever do. But one of the things I think we experience is that dialogue can become really hard work, especially when you've been together for like 20 years, and you're going deeper and deeper. And one project that we've done recently is to, we all wrote down questions we have of each other that we always wanted to ask and never asked. And that has been so wonderful, right, everybody? Yeah. It's been so incredible. We are unearthing all these, not personal questions, but about our faiths and our beliefs and blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that I'm always aware of is I have a saying on my door. It says, "World peace begins at home." And I think some of the biggest struggle for me, and I'm sure other people, is what to do with those big things, those big questions at home. And I don't just mean between red and blue. Yeah. That's obvious. So one of the things I just did when you gave us this gift of an opportunity is I looked at one person in our group who we've been kind of like needing to talk about some things. And I am leaving here feeling so gratified that I just want to thank you for that opportunity.
And yet for speaking, witnessing.
That's witnessing.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I should say that last year.
I yield to submit.
Do you know that Shanti is talking here tomorrow at 9 a.m.? And, yeah.
I've been involved in many dialogues over the years. And sometimes I feel I've been searching for some methodology to conduct a good dialogue of. Lately I've come to a personal feeling. It's not the methodology. It's how I bring myself to that dialogue.
That's beautiful. Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's the hard part. I come to a dialogue either with a preformed opinion or about the person I'm going into a dialogue or about a subject I'm going into a dialogue. But somehow I need to be present for the other person. How to be present for the other person is, I find, very hard. But that, I feel, is the crux of a dialogue.
what both of you said goes together so beautifully. Maybe it's something, I'm gonna walk closer to you. Maybe it's like we're all discovering right now together what that feels like, you know, and maybe we can pass to each other what we learn, you know, what helps us. Is it an image? It's that sense I had when we were all having lunch, a couple of us were having lunch together. It's like I want to find those senses that bring me to that. So interesting. That we can place ourselves, and so some of my clues are, I'm going to place myself in absolute safety, where no matter how this person is talking to me, can I hold my safety? Can I connect to the heart of the world? The other is, you know, if you write a grant, it has to be all quantifiable. This many people, and they did this, and they this. So if you get away from that side of the brain, and it's the connective part, so there's no goal that you have to prove, neither of you have to prove anything. It places you in a larger river. The very last day, Paula asked us, you know, I've got 3 hours left. And it's exactly what you're saying about, what's your methodology, Paula? How are we going to spend this time? And she simply said, what did you learn? And it took 2 hours.
I can see better by the light in your eyes. I wrote it down. I'm going to really remember that. Thank you.